Hello, loyal viewer, friend, comic book fanatic, or family member that I pressured into watching this. Welcome to episode 1 of Bagged and Boarded with Pauly, the only comic book internet show where you can get the greatest quality recorded from my iPhone. So basically, this is kind of an experiment kind of thing. I've been wanting to do a YouTube channel for a long time, maybe in like a podcast form. I wasn't really sure how, but I figured maybe if I throw them on YouTube, it would be better. But I've always wanted to talk about comic books because I've been collecting for a long time now, and I have been just a big comic book fan all my life, and I like to be able to share all of that with all of you because I feel like comic books are something that, maybe aren't as stigmatized as they once were, but I still think that, more people should get into them because they are an amazing thing and they're just fun to collect and they're fun to read. So you're covered on all fronts. If you like art, if you like action, if you like reading, you're covered on all fronts there. So that's pretty much why I'm doing it, and also just for my own personal entertainment. So, what you see in front of you for the first minute and a half of this video was not my face. I know you guys don't want to see that. But is my favorite comic book in my collection, Miss Marvel #1. And it is the first appearance of Miss Marvel herself, Carol Danvers. Carol Danvers is my favorite comic book character of all time, hands down. Whether or not she's playing as Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel, she is without a doubt my favorite superheroine, especially in Marvel Comics. And overall, I wouldn't say it's an extremely rare comic book, but I will say it's old, and I will also say that it's not the easiest to find in a good condition. I would say anywhere from a grade by the CGC of probably between 7.0 and 9.8. This comic can go for about $40, maybe even up to $50. Kind of depends on where you're looking. eBay, that'll never help you out. Your local comic book store might be able to help you out a little bit more. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite comics, and I'll hold on to it forever, and it's helped me build on my comic book collection itself. So overall, what I'm going to be talking about in this series is kind of in what's going on in the comic book world, comic book news, anything from movie news or anything like that. Primarily Marvel. I'm going to get that out there right now. I'm primarily a Marvel person. I'm not against DC by any means, but I've primarily been taken over to the Marvel side. And you can say that I'm, kind of jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak. But, overall, I feel as though I have more of a love for the Marvel characters than I do for the DC characters. Not to say that I dislike DC by any means. So this first episode, I kind of want to just give you an overview of some of my comic books, some of the things that I hold near and dear to myself. Obviously, you've seen that Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel are some of my favorite comic book characters of all time. And jumping in, may not seem like a lot at the moment, but this is kind of where I stand with my comic book collection. Currently, you can see that I have a total of I cannot count. That is going to be a total of 8 short comic book boxes, 7 of the graphic variety. They were cheap, and I thought they looked pretty cool, so I went with those, and 1 long box of comic books. And they range, again, for a variety of different things, Marvel to miscellaneous, DC, things like that. And if we move on over through the basement, and don't worry, I will do a video on my very nerdy and awesome basement. I have my filing cabinet, and this is actually where it started. This was where I first started storing my comic books, but of course I ran out of room after a while. I thought this would cover me for years, but it ended up not. And I have the top drawer completely filled, and I also have the bottom drawer completely filled, so I had to venture out a long time ago. And I also have a few trades, bigger books on the side there. And overall, this is where all the magic happens, down here in my basement, where I store, bag, board all my comic books. And That's another thing I want to get into. Anyone who wants to become serious about collecting comic books, I feel that it's important to talk about the safety of your comic books and how to properly store them. You know, over the years, you've noticed that comic books go for an insane amounts of prices, but yet the comic is not exactly in the greatest shape. And when it comes to grading comics, that company right there, CGC, they are primarily the big corporate giant, I guess you so to say, for lack of a better term, when it comes to grading comic books and placing basically telling you what kind of shape your comic book is in. And when you get your comic book graded, it does not come at a very cheap price. CGC to get your comic book graded by the CGC can cost, I believe, about $75 to $100. And even then, your comic book will be stored into a plastic casing with a grade, basically referencing anything that comic book may be known for, such as if I got Miss Marvel #1 graded, it would talk about how this comic is the first appearance of Miss Marvel, and talk about any, abnormalities with the comic. There's a crease on the side there. Staples are wearing, but still very much functional, and there's a few little bends and tears on the edges of the comic. That's why I've placed it into this protective case. But I've always felt that I didn't really want to get my comic books graded, because once the comic book is graded, it can no longer be read. It is completely sealed into a plastic shell. But if you wanted to keep it safe and you just want it for the collectability of it, or the value of it, then you should get your comic books graded. They're a very good way of keeping your comic books safe. But for any comic books you want to read still, and you still want to keep safe, I would suggest bagging and boarding your comics. Now, obviously that's in the title of the show, but it actually does have true meaning. So what you want to do is get yourself some of these boards. Every comic book store will sell these, and they are not very expensive. I believe you can get a total of 100 sleeves and or bags by Comic Care. That's who I go with. They're very reliable, and they are very good shape bags and boards. Pretty much everything they sell, from everywhere from bronze to silver age to golden age comic sizes, and even the current comic book sizes, and they will significantly help keep your comic books in good shape. So overall, you also want to place your comic books in boxes. You want to keep them organized. You don't want to lose a comic book that you've come to love, and when you're 45 years old, you have children, and you're showing off your comic books, and you can't find that comic book that you loved so much, and it's gone and ended up in your parents' attic. They had a yard sale, and they sold, I don't know, Amazing Spider-Man #15 for $15. So you never want that to happen. You want to keep your comic books in good care. They are very collectible, and they're very fun to have and to hold on to. So just kind of getting into some of the comic books that I love the most. Marvel, like I said, is the team I've primarily swayed towards, but I'm not going to dedicate myself to one side. I don't believe in labels with regards to comics. I feel like everyone is allowed to enjoy all comics of all sizes and varieties. And when I say sizes, I truly mean sizes. My sister is also a comic book collector, and as you can see, not all comic books are, as you would say, the normal magazine, or not even magazine, just the regular thin shape. This one actually looks like a real book. And as you can see, it's, very much a pain because it will not fit in these boxes. So we've been trying to figure out a way to keep those safe. But I digress. Moving on. Some of my favorite things in my collection, moving into Deadpool box #1. I actually have the complete second series of Ghost Riders, #1 through 55. I felt like I got a bargain on this complete series. The price is actually not accurate. I got it, I believe, for 75% off at my local comic book store, all 55 comics. And Ghost Rider is one of my favorite series, primarily Johnny Blaze. I've also enjoyed the new Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes. He is very cool as well. And I also, collect a lot of different things. I'm also a huge fan of old event comics, and by what I mean by that, I'm going to refer to that a lot throughout this series, is like events, big things that bring all of your Marvel heroes together, such as Marvel Secret Wars, which I have right here, stowed away. And I have numbers 1 through 8, 1 through 12. Unfortunately, I do not have the big issue, number 8, where you have black-suited Spider-Man. That one's a little bit harder to get, and I hope one day I will be able to get that one. And I also have Infinity War, the complete series of Infinity War, and I was never able to achieve Infinity Gauntlet, so I ended up settling on the trade. A lot of people talk about the new Marvel movies that have been coming out, and anybody who wants to stay updated, maybe want to spoil themselves a little bit. What, many fans and people have speculated is that the Infinity War movie parts 1 and 2 coming out by the Marvel Studios, they're basing it off of the Infinity Gauntlet rather than actually basing it off of the Infinity War. So, interesting enough. We'll see what direction Marvel takes that. But, again, event comics, I very much love them, even though Marvel has gone a little bit overboard with them lately. I'll make a video all about that soon enough. But, like I said, moving on to more, event comic books. Gracious. I'm a little bit, there we go. For example, one of my favorites, Civil War II. It's one of the more recent big events that has been going on in the Marvel Universe, Civil War II. I have various different types of comics in that regard. Again, I'll make a whole video on that as well. And also, probably the biggest one that everyone's talking about right now is Secret Empire. That one's the current big event that's going on in the Marvel Universe right now. It is very exciting, very fun, very hyped for the next issue that is actually coming out tomorrow on the 31st of May, Secret Empire number 3, and I will probably be making a video tomorrow updating on all of my pickups, and I will try to make a video every single Wednesday talking about all my pickups that I get on New Comic Book Day and whatnot. So I think this is where I'm going to cut it off. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to episode 1 of Bagged and Boarded with Pauly, and I hope you tune in tomorrow for the next episode, and that's about it. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.